Not only was 2021 a step up from 2020 in terms of the movie industry coming back to form in terms of production, but this year also felt like a big step up in quality from last year. Now yes, that might be because of the many titles that got their release dates pushed back due to COVID, but even just by looking at sheer quality comparison, it's a huge step up. So in loving spirit and fairness, considering how hard I went in this year's worst list, here are my top 10 movies and shows of 2021. The Good Bunch. But first I'm gonna run down my list of honorable mentions that just barely didn't make the cut along with their one-sentence reviews. Free Guy, a better movie than The Matrix. I genuinely mean that statement, by the way. WandaVision, good for 3/4 of the runtime, then a big disappointment. Squid Game, good for 3/4 of the runtime, then a big disappointment. The Power of the Dog, good movie but the worst title of all time. And here are some 2021 films that I still want to see and may change the order of this list depending on how much I enjoy them, so take this entire video with a grain of salt. Okay, here we go.
And also, the original mangaka intended an allusion to the final scene of The Grapes of Wrath.
The Way of the Househusband is the perfect snack of a TV show. It's so simple and so short and perfectly satisfies that quick bite of television that you want when you have a little time to kill, but not an entire hour or 30 minutes like other shows. I don't even know what made me want to check it out in the first place, but 5 minutes into the first episode, I was wondering how an anime could be this funny. And not just funny for anime standards, but funny enough to compete with most mainstream TV right now. Like I've stated before, I'm not an avid anime watcher, so recommending this show to my friends who watch anime and then seeing them fall in love with it made me so happy.
You're pointing at me right now as you say that. Look at you.
I'm
Look
just
at your
pointing at
finger.
your pointing.
Look at your finger right
Different
now.
than
What is
normal
it doing?
pointing.
You are pointing.
I literally just did a review for this, but I'll say it again. This movie is a celebration of the character of Spider-Man in so many ways, and the enjoyment comes from your appreciation of them being able to pull off what they do in the movie. I personally do not think this is top tier Marvel, not even top 3 Spider-Man, but I cannot deny how much fun this movie was to watch, and that is why it made my top 10. By the standard Pixar has set for itself, Luca kind of fails. It's not trying to say anything huge like most Pixar movies do, it's not trying to make you cry, it's just trying to have fun, which is something Pixar hasn't really had the chance to do yet. I have to say though, I really dig their B material, because this also almost made me cry in the end. Yeah, it's not as structurally tight as most of their other work, but I'm fine with this being the bar for all of Pixar's B material, cause again, I had a lot of fun watching this. I noticed that every entry on this list so far has just been something that I had fun watching. I don't know what that says about me, but I hope it's not too bad.
Oh, shit! A rat!
Speaking of fun, let's talk about the assassination of Fred Hampton. Judas and the Black Messiah is a movie whose power doesn't hit you until days after you watch it. The same power slowly grows and grows throughout the course of the movie, and is directly attributed to Shaka King's direction and, of course, the powerhouse performances of Lakeith Stanfield and Daniel Kaluuya. Now, while Daniel won the Oscar for Best Supporting Performance, which Lakeith was also nominated for, which I'm so confused about because if they're both nominated as supporting actors, who was the lead? I mean, a case could be made for either, but you know, that's just something that really confused me. While I am happy about Daniel's win, I actually think Lakeith deserved it more. Lakeith Stanfield is honestly one of the most underappreciated actors working today, and we have seen how he saves other bad projects. Look no further than my worst list, where he single-handedly saved Harder They Fall and Yasuke from being in the top 5. This is the first movie that I've seen where he isn't trying to save something, but has a strong co-star foil who allows him to shine even stronger and deliver hands down the best performance of his career so far.
I'm a big fan of Dune. Dude, Dune, your mom. Sorry.
Having not read any of the books, nor been aware of any of the previous Dune media, I was ready to be overwhelmed and confused by this, but it was handled exceptionally well in my opinion. What took me by absolute surprise was how good the world building was. Most of the dialogue was exposition, but it was all done with a certain frequency and would never rest on one point for too long, but also never went too quickly. This movie convinced me that these were places and things that could exist sometime in the future. My only complaint is that the entire movie feels like an introduction, and it never really comes down. It just keeps going up and building and building and building, but I kinda knew that going in, so I wasn't let down by that like some people were. Bottom line, probably the biggest surprise for me this year, and I'm really looking forward to part 2.
We now return to Wes Anderson's Pan Up, Pan Down, French song, The End.
The French Dispatch. It's about as Wes Anderson-y as Wes Anderson movies can get. This movie is him going f*** it and throwing everything he's got at the screen, and it somehow works despite how bad the idea could have gone wrong. A lot of people criticize him for being style over substance, especially with his last few movies, this one included, But I disagree. This movie's overall tone was a lot darker than I expected, and the whimsy and wonder usually present in his movies is substituted for dour, melancholic themes. That's not to say this movie isn't some fun. There are a few shots that I can only describe as mannequin challenge diorama shots that have been stuck in my mind due to just how cool they are, and each of the 3 stories is just as good as the other in my opinion. If this movie doesn't finally win Wes Anderson his first Oscar, I'm gonna seriously punch a man. Man, a lot really does happen in a year. Remember this? Amazon should just keep releasing gory superhero shows, cause they seem to be really good at it. Despite it being very similar to The Boys, Invincible never ceased to feel so fresh, and told what at glance looked like a story with similar themes, but was able to basically just make R-rated Teen Titans. I don't know how a show could constantly shock me to my core with episode after episode after episode, but this one was able to do it.
Everybody's celebrating New Year's nowadays. You notice this? It's a trend. Everybody celebrating New Year's. Yeah, I'm busy celebrating 2 years. 2 more years of Obama, baby, huh? Yeah.
Call this an Eric Andre appreciation post all you want. This is a top 5 comedy for me. Going in, I thought it would be fine, but holy crap, I was not prepared for how good this was. When it's not Eric and Rel's chemistry popping off, it's the way Eric can improvise on the fly and get real people who don't even realize they're on camera to move the plot along. And the hilarious banter that ensues when Eric inevitably trolls them to the point of madness is just so good to watch. A little bit of Borat, a little bit of Jackass, a little bit of Eric's nuclear charisma, and you've got the funniest movie of the last 5 years on your hands. I am not a fan of the original West Side Story. I am not a fan of musicals. I am not a fan of Steven Spielberg's latest work. So when I tell you that this absolutely blew me away to the point of being my second favorite movie of the year, you better bet your ass that this movie is at least really good. As far as I'm concerned, this makes up for Ready Player One, and cements Spielberg as one of the greatest living directors. As if that was ever in question, but it's always nice to have some reassurance. Like most good movies, this one gradually builds up the tension and stakes, as everyone gives great performances and the passion and energy is felt in every aspect of the filmmaking. The acting, the set design, the cinematography, the sound design, hell, the music slaps in this one sometimes. The last 45 minutes are honestly a 10 out of 10 for me, and I almost wanted to give this a 10 out of 10 if it wasn't for the fact that I don't like every song, the lens flares are really distracting and give J.J. Abrams a run for his money, and the Ansel Elgort thing, but besides that, my favorite Spielberg movie.
Ooh, this is my jam. Turn that song off. This is my jam.
From the moment I finished it, there was absolutely no doubt in my mind that this would not only be the number 1 on this list, but one of the most important pieces of media in my life. I don't think anything has captured the sense of irony and despair of the pandemic more perfectly than Bo Burnham did with this movie. And yes, I absolutely consider this to be a movie. The imagery, the music, the feelings, all of these things that Bo is able to do while staying in one place the entire time is an achievement unlike any other. Ever since I first watched it, not a day has passed that I haven't at least thought of it, because it hit such a specific emotional chord with not just me, but millions of other people, I'm sure. It was able to take this crazy, sad, and often hopeless time in our lives and give it a meaning. There are some people that think it will age poorly, that think the novelty of the pandemic will make it outdated, but I disagree. I think this will go down as one of the greatest artistic achievements of the decade and will continue to be talked about due to its rewatchable nature, the criticisms of our culture, and the resonating emotional chord that it has struck with many people, myself included, through its ability to capture this moment in our lives, unlike anything we'll probably ever do.